From the Intercultural Language Education Special Interest Group. We're here at the Southern Cone Conference in Curitiba, and today we're interviewing Jennifer Uhler, who's the Regional English Language Officer with the United States Department of State. Thank you so much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
And I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, the RELO office has lots of projects with public school students and public school teachers. And we understand that one of your goals is to develop cultural awareness, intercultural awareness, which is of course a topic that is very dear to us. How receptive do you think public school students and teachers, and how prepared do you find them to dealing with and to learning about these intercultural issues? Do you find that has improved over time?
Well, it's difficult to say because I've only been in Brazil for a year, but I have had encounters with teachers in a wide variety of contexts here in Brazil. So if we talk about teaching context in Manaus or Rio or Sao Paulo or here in Curitiba, they're very different. And I would say from my perspective as an English language teaching professional, as well as from the U.S. Embassy and Regional English Language Office, culture is something we can't extract from language use. And one of the motivating reasons to speak or use another language is to be able to interact with other people.
Right.
We know that there are more non-native speakers than native speakers of English. So speaking English is interacting not only with what is traditionally thought of as dominant cultures. So one of the things we found very effective here in Brazil in working with public school teachers and public school audiences is to find connections with local culture.
Right.
So, for example, in Manaus, because I guess I've already mentioned Manaus, we recently did a 2-week project that was focused on co-creating materials to learn English through talking about the Amazon. And of course, in the middle of that are questions and conversations about what it might be like elsewhere. But there's not a lot of relevance for talking about New York City or London or Sydney in the middle of the Amazon with kids who haven't had a lot of contact. But if we talk about the fruits of the Amazon or the rivers and geography, there's an opening for them to explain their own culture to outsiders, because there are a lot of tourists in places like Manaus, but also to learn something. So I think the best way to open that door or window is by making those connections between things that are very local, that kids understand intuitively because they're part of their everyday life.
That's fascinating, and something that we find is that, of course, as we explore language and the different aspects of language learning, we kind of open doors, don't we, to different possibilities of expressing oneself and talking about what's dear to one. Have you found that public school students and teachers have been able to enjoy these resources? I mean, as they develop their language skills, as teachers develop their teaching skills and get in contact with new strategies, that it makes it easier for them, or it makes them more comfortable as they express their own cultural realities.
I think it builds confidence to explore cross-cultural themes together with language. And actually right here at Southern BRAZ-TESOL, we have 3 roundtable kind of panel discussions that we're leading all with public school teachers. And so I hope that you or maybe someone else might be able to attend and meet some of those teachers, because they're extraordinary. So some of them are participating in programs we're sponsoring that specifically focus on language. Of course, language and culture are being intertwined in an intensive 200-hour program. And then others are participating in methodological programs that focus on the BNCC, so the new Common Core here in Brazil. But they're exploring alongside that local and U.S. culture, because that's the embassy's connection. And the third program we have are a group of teachers who are in this exciting experimental phase of opening public bilingual schools here in Brazil that's an opportunity and also comes with many challenges. But I think all those bilingual contexts where you're talking about geography or science or history or math, you have to have some sort of mixing of cultures for it to make sense. And I think from what I've observed in visiting their schools and talking to their teachers, they're having a lot of success. And they're finding personal fulfillment through the engagement and connection with other professionals, and also just learning more about the dynamics of the region of the Southern Cone, the United States. You know, there's a lot of influencing factors.
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming to us and for the wonderful work you're doing with the Department of State.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
It's a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.